What's up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my NFL DFS picks for the Super Bowl. We have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Really looking forward to this game. Should be fun, should be exciting, should be a high-scoring game as well. And since it is the Super Bowl, I do want to do a giveaway. I do these giveaways for my MMA cards usually, but going to be doing one for the Super Bowl here since it is such a big game. And yeah, so the giveaway is first. What you got to do to enter is first, like the video. Second, subscribe if you haven't yet. And then third, comment down below what you think the score of the Super Bowl is. And whoever does get the closest is going to win $25. Not much, but something just to say thanks for all the support throughout the year. And so just comment down what you think the score is going to be for the game. And if there is a tie, of course, it goes to the person that commented that first. So comment down your prediction for the Super Bowl. I'll probably put mine down in there as well. And yeah, should be a good game. So as always, before we get started, if you can leave a like, subscribe if you have not yet, would appreciate that a bunch. And then yeah, trying to get that 10K subscriber goal. And if you have not yet, go check out my other content. MMA, NASCAR's coming back next week, some PGA as well. So lots of stuff going on right now. All right, with that said, we're going to get into it. And so this game is, a 56-point game total. Should be very high scoring. And the Kansas City Chiefs are minus 3-point favorites, and the Buccaneers are plus 3-point underdogs there. So we'll kind of get into it here. I'll go kind of, top from bottom and just talk about my favorite plays, talk some ownership and all that as well. Starting with Patrick Mahomes, he's 12,000, somebody who is averaging 27 DraftKings points throughout the year. And it's not hard to tell that Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be the number one owned player on this slate, and for a really good reason. He has a great upside, he has a great floor, a great ceiling as well. I don't mind the matchup against the Bucs. The Buccaneers, the thing about them is they have a really good run defense. They're the number one ranked run defense in the league, so I think the Chiefs are going to do a lot of passing, and it's something to do either way. And I just feel like, Patrick Mahomes is probably the safest play on the slate, and he is the most expensive as well for a good reason. So I'm going to have a ton of Patrick Mahomes, don't get me wrong, but I don't hate lineups where you maybe don't have Patrick Mahomes in a lineup to get very different. I can see him being extremely high owned, 60%, 70%, maybe even more than that, 80% even, because people are just going to plug him in and plug a lot of these Chiefs in as well. And I don't think it's all that crazy to have some lineups without him as well. So I will have a lot of lineups with him, don't get me wrong, but I will have some lineups without him as well. But obviously a fantastic play in Patrick Mahomes. Going down a little bit, Travis KELCE, 11,000, probably my favorite captain on the whole slate. The captains I'm looking at, I'm not really into, captaining the quarterbacks, Mahomes, Brady. I'm more so looking at guys like Travis KELCE, TYREEK Hill, Chris Godwin, guys like that. And Travis KELCE is probably my favorite one. Somebody that's averaging 23.5 DraftKings points, 14 touchdowns on the year, 1,600 yards on the year as well. And Tampa Bay is not great against the tight end, and like I said, Tampa Bay's run defense is what you really got to worry about. You don't really got to worry about that passing game. I think Travis KELCE is probably going to have a field day in this game, as he has in a ton of games. Looking at his last couple games, 39, 27, 22, 28, 30. I think he has a really high ceiling. Last time they played Tampa Bay, Travis KELCE didn't have 16.2 DraftKings points, but yeah, I love Travis KELCE here. I'm going to have him in the majority of my lineups. I like him as a captain as well, and fantastic play in Travis KELCE. And then, another Chief, 3 Chiefs in a row, TYREEK Hill. So the big thing with TYREEK Hill is I think he's going to be extremely high owned, and for a really good reason. And he is averaging 22.9 DraftKings points per game. And Hill absolutely went off the last time these two teams played, scoring 60.9 DraftKings points in that game. I want to say it was in like week 12. And has scored 22.9 and 29.2 in his 2 playoff games thus far. Yeah, just another elite option at wide receiver with a ton of upside. I don't mind him at captain as well. I think he has a very high ceiling. And you get a nice discount off of guys like Travis KELCE and guys like Patrick Mahomes. So I definitely like TYREEK Hill, going to have a lot of them. He's going to be really high owned. And you can say that with like all 3 of these guys. Patrick Mahomes, Travis KELCE, and TYREEK Hill are all going to be extremely high owned. What people are going to do is fit them all in a lineup and kind of build around it. So I'm going to have some lineups with that, don't get me wrong, but I think you can definitely have some lineups without them because there are some other good plays kind of in this range and below them as well that you can look at, and we'll get into that really soon. Tom Brady, 10,000. I actually have some decent interest in Tom Brady. As you guys know, quarterbacks in a showdown slate is very important, and he is 10,000 and that is going to be a $2,000 savings off of Patrick Mahomes. And you're not only getting a salary savings, which is a huge salary of $2,000, you're also getting a huge ownership savings as well. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be maybe 30-40% higher owned than a Tom Brady, because people are going to go out there and play your Travis Kelce's, your Tyreek Hill's, your Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be the highest owned player on the slate. So I think Tom Brady's going to go. He's still going to be really high owned, but I do think he's going to be a lot lower owned than a Patrick Mahomes. So for that reason, I do have some interest. The Chiefs have given up the third most DraftKings points to opposing quarterbacks. I think that the Chiefs defense is the worst defense in this game. I think the Buccaneers defense is really good. And I also like that the Buccaneers are 3-point underdogs in a 56-point game total. And I do think that to keep up with this Chiefs offense, I think the Buccaneers are going to have to throw the ball a ton, and I can definitely see that. I can see a lot of passing. We'll kind of take a look at what Tom Brady did when they played the Chiefs back in Week 12 it was. Had 26.7 DraftKings points. Very good game, 345 yards, 3 touchdowns. So very good game there from Tom Brady. I can definitely see something like that playing at home. I love the discount, and I love the ownership discount on Tom Brady as well. So definitely like Tom Brady at 10,000. Chris Godwin, 8,800. I love the price here. I think there's a ton of upside. It's kind of close between Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. They're kind of like in the same category for me, but I do have interest in these guys because they're going to have some ownership for sure, but they're going to be so much lower owned than guys like Travis Kelce, guys like Tyreek Hill, and maybe they don't have the same upside, but I do think that they could have really good games here. And Chris Godwin's somebody that's averaging 16 DraftKings points per game. He has 14 targets through 3 playoff games, and he's averaging 15.3 DraftKings points in these 3 playoff games as well. And the Chiefs have given up the second least amount of DraftKings points to opposing wide receivers. So the Chiefs are pretty good against the wide receiver, but you are getting a $1,600 savings off of someone like Tyreek Hill and probably like half the ownership. So I feel like the Bucs are going to be throwing the ball a lot, like I mentioned. And he did have 9 targets last time these two teams played in Week 12. So I think Chris Godwin's definitely somebody to look at. And just for the price, and I do think there's upside. I would not be shocked whatsoever if Chris Godwin or Mike Evans go off. Especially if Antonio Brown does not play. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, Mike Evans, kind of the same thing. You're getting a $400 discount, I believe, off of Chris Godwin, somebody that's averaging 15.9 DraftKings points per game. And he definitely has touchdown upside. I want to say he has more touchdown upside than in Chris Godwin. He has 15 touchdowns on the year compared to Godwin's 8. And you get a $2,000 savings off of Tyreek Hill. And 9 targets and 2 touchdowns the last time these two played in Week 12. So had a really good game against the Chiefs last time. Yeah, I like Mike Evans. I like Chris Godwin. I like how cheap they are. And I like how low owned they're going to be compared to these Chiefs. But yeah, some plays I'm looking at there. So getting into Leonard Fournette here at 7,800, I feel like he's going to be so high owned just because of how great he's been playing. And he has been playing fantastic. He's averaging 13.2 DraftKings points throughout the year, and then averaging 21.1 DraftKings points thus far this postseason. I want to say 3 games. And the Chiefs are 21st in DraftKings points given up against running backs. In the last 3 games, Fournette has had 17, 22, and 23 total touches and has scored in all 3 playoff games. So we really can't deny how great Leonard Fournette has been, and he's been fantastic in the playoffs, but he's 7,800, and his teammate Ronald Jones II, he's 2,200. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but just such a big price discrepancy between those two. Of course, in this range, I want to go up and get my Godwins. I want to go up and get my Mike Evans, my Tyreek Hills, my Kelce's, my Mahomes, my Brady's. So I don't know how much Fournette I'm going to get, especially because I think he's going to gain some ownership. I'd probably much rather take the savings with Ronald Jones, who is 2,200, who we'll talk about in a little bit. So although I think Fournette's a really good play, it's just the price for me. And I think Ronald Jones has that 10 to 15 touch upside at 2,200. I'd rather probably gravitate towards that Ronald Jones. But I think Fournette's fine at the price. But I'd rather, if I'm paying up for somebody, it's probably want to be a Tyreek Hill, a Kelce, a Brady, a Godwin, or an Evans. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 7,000. So this is a really weird play. So he's been battling injuries since Week 15. I want to say he missed 4 games as well, which is something to note. But he came back in last game, and he had only 7 total touches, 6 carries, 1 reception. He did have a touchdown, though. I don't know. He seems fully healthy now, and I do think that he should get the majority of the touches here. Obviously, Williams out-touched him in the last game, but I'm kind of thinking maybe they kind of wanted to save him for the Super Bowl. Maybe he's his first game back in 4 games. Maybe they wanted to take it easy on him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, nobody's going to play him. Everybody's probably going to gravitate towards the Williams, and I think Edwards-Helaire is going to be very, very, very low owned. And we can kind of take a look at what he did earlier in the season, kind of some of the touches he's been getting earlier in the season. 26 rushing attempts, 16 rushing attempts, get some targets as well, 8 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. Back earlier in the season, he was getting a ton of usage, 16 touches, 21 total touches there. So if he can get that same amount of usage that he got earlier in the season, I think he's going to be a very good player. I just don't know if he will or not. Nobody knows that, except maybe the coaches, but I don't know. It's a tough one because it's intriguing how low owned he's going to be. Nobody's going to want to play somebody that got only 7 touches last game there. And Williams out-touched him, and Williams is even cheaper, but I wouldn't be shocked if they went back to Clyde Edwards-Helaire being that guy that's going to get the majority of the touches, and maybe last game was just because they wanted to kind of ease him in. He came off a 4-game layoff, so just don't be surprised if Clyde Edwards-Helaire does get some decent usage at very, very low ownership. For that reason, I do have interest in him, but if I'm doing like 1 to 3 lineups, obviously I'm not going to have him in, but if I'm doing like 150, 100 lineups, I'm probably going to put him in there because I think he's going to be so low owned. And if he does get that good usage that he got earlier in the season, he has extremely good upside, although the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have really good run defense, but of course you can do it from the air as well. All right, Antonio Brown, I don't hate it if he plays. 6,200 seems kind of cheap. If he does not play, I think Scotty Miller, who we'll talk about, 3,400 is a pretty good play to plug in there. So kind of take a look and see what happens with that there. I guess he practiced fully on Thursday, so kind of trending in the right direction. Like I said, if he does play, 6,200 seems pretty solid for a guy like Antonio Brown. And of course, I do think that hurts Godwin and Evans just a little bit, but I still think they're good plays. But yeah, Brown at 6,200 is definitely something to look at. I think he does have some good upside. We'll kind of see what he did last time against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 3.1 DraftKings points, 3 targets, 2 receptions there. So yeah, I think he's fine at 6,200 if he does play, but look out for that. Backup quarterbacks. Kind of want to skim through these guys a little bit. Hardman, so if Sammy Watkins plays, I don't have interest in Hardman whatsoever at 5,600. And even if Sammy Watkins doesn't play, 5,600 seems like way too expensive for someone in Harden, who did have a good last game. He did have a touchdown, 12.4 DraftKings points, but 5,600, I'd rather pay, go down and play like guys like Robinson, who's going to most likely play, or even like a BYRON Pringle. But talked about him a little bit. Darrell Williams, probably no interest for me whatsoever. I think people are going to be kind of high on him because he did get, 14 total touches, scored 13.1 DraftKings points. A lot of people maybe think that he's going to be the number 1 guy in this game, and maybe he is, but I kind of have a feeling that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be that guy, and last week they kind of just wanted to ease him in, so I'm not going to be high on Williams whatsoever. Maybe have a little bit, but even then, like, the Buccaneers' run defense is number 1 in the league, really good. I don't see Williams doing much. Maybe he can get a couple receptions, but even then, like, I don't see him doing much there. So maybe he scores, maybe he doesn't, but I just kind of worried about the usage at this point because I do think Edwards-Helaire should get a role. I mean, you'd think you would. All right, who else we want to talk about here? Cameron Brate, 4,800. Is questionable, but should be able to play here. If he does not, obviously that makes Gronk a really good play, but Cameron Brate has been the guy throughout the playoffs. 5 targets, 6 targets, scoring 10, 9, and 12. He's been the guy so far in the playoffs. Gronk has not been the guy. I remember I played Gronk in, I want to say, the first playoff game they had, and Cameron Brate was that guy scoring 12 DraftKings points, and Gronk put up a 0, so they're kind of using Brate a lot more than Gronkowski in the passing game. The problem kind of is the price at 4,800. You're going to need a touchdown. You're going to need a couple receptions. I don't know if he has that in him. But the Kansas City Chiefs aren't that great whatsoever against the tight end, so they could try to exploit that. So I think Brate's in play. Not in love with the price, but I do think he's something to definitely mention. And then Sammy Watkins touched on a little bit. He is questionable. If he plays, 4,200 for the second best wide receiver on the Chiefs. I mean, yeah, sign me up. If he does not play, that'll open up some stuff like Demarcus Robinson, who is going to be $1,400 cheaper than a Sammy Watkins. I think Robinson's in play. BYRON Pringle is going to be in play for me if Watkins does not play as well. But hopefully Watkins does play, because if he does play, 4,200 seems way too cheap for Watkins. I know he hasn't done much all year, but like I said, he's the second best wide receiver on the team. He should get some action. He did have 2 touchdowns this year, so I think he's fine. I think he's cheap, but we got to see if he plays or not. All right, kind of group these two players together, Bucker and Suckup. I think both kickers are in play, and taking a look at Bucker, I can honestly see Bucker outscoring every single player below him, and even some guys above him. Like, I can see him outscoring Watkins, a Braid, a Williams, a Hardman, just by scoring like 3 field goals, a couple extra points, scoring 12 points. That's 3x. So I'm actually pretty high on Bucker in the spot at 4,000, especially in a high-scoring game. Should be a lot of field goals scored as well. Yeah, I like Bucker a lot. Like I said, I can see him outscoring a lot of the guys around him for sure. The only way that won't work is like if, say, Gronkowski scores like 15, 16 DraftKings points, something like that, or like a Ronald Jones scores like 16 DraftKings points, something like that, which is kind of unlikely, but that's the only way it probably wouldn't work. But I could honestly see Bucker outscoring everybody below him. So, like both kickers for sure, I think both kickers are in play. Scotty Miller touched on a little bit. If Brown is out, I will have some serious interest in Scotty Miller. Rob Gronkowski is interesting. We got to take a look at the injury for Braid. If Braid's out, I think that makes Gronkowski a really good play. If Braid does play, not much interest for me because he will gain some ownership. He's Rob Gronkowski. 3.9 DraftKings points in Week 20, 2.4, 0. So he just has not been doing anything in the playoffs whatsoever. He kind of went on a decent run towards the end of the regular season, but just hasn't done anything in the playoffs whatsoever. So going to stay away from that, although the price is very intriguing. But if Braid's out, yeah, I mean, fire up your Gronkowskis, but I think Braid's going to play. Getting into the defenses, and I'll kind of pair them together a little bit. So it's kind of tough for me in a game that's projected to score high. I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns. If I had to pick one defense, it's probably going to be the cheaper defense in the Chiefs. Tom Brady has thrown 15 interceptions this year, and they should be throwing a lot, like I said. So I wouldn't be shocked if maybe the Chiefs got a couple interceptions, and the Chiefs also have 37 sacks this year as well. So maybe they do get a couple interceptions, but I do see a lot of scoring in this game. But we never know. Like, if there's a touchdown on either side at these prices, it's probably going to be optimal. So I will have some interest in the defenses because I think nobody's going to play them, but it's really hard to predict whether a defense is going to get a touchdown or not. If not, they probably don't find the optimal. But if I was to play any defense, it probably would be the Chiefs, ultimately, because I see the Chiefs scoring a lot of touchdowns. And the Buccaneers defense is good, like I said, but I mean, the Chiefs offense is the best in the league. So, but the Buccaneers defense, I don't see many turnovers coming from Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. That's kind of why I'm not liking them all that much. But they do have 55 sacks on the year, which is really, really good. They do pressure the quarterback very well. So, I don't know. Maybe they can find a touchdown, but even then, I think they're going to lose a lot of points, giving up a lot of touchdowns. So, I don't really like defenses that much, but they are something to mention because, I don't know, I think the Chiefs are something to look at there. All right, so Ronald Jones, 2,200, probably my favorite value play on the whole slate. He's somebody that's averaging 13 DraftKings points per game, and Chiefs are. He has 23 touches in the last 2 games played. Taking a look at it here, he had 10 rushing attempts against Green Bay, and he had 13 rushing attempts against New Orleans in Week 20 and Week 19. But the problem for me, and I mean, it's not a big deal because of his price tag, but he has 0 receptions and 0 touchdowns in the playoffs. But he's another guy that has been battling injuries throughout the playoffs as well. I remember that he was supposed to play in Week 18, in the first week of the playoffs, and I think he was active, but he got like 0 touches. He went on the field 0 times, and that's when Fournette started to kind of take over the role there. But I wouldn't be shocked, especially with this extra week of rest, if Ronald Jones came out here and got a decent-sized workload. And honestly, like at 2,200, if you're going to give me 10 to 15 touches at this price tag, I'm going to take it all day. I'm not scared of the Chiefs' run defense whatsoever in a high-scoring game. Maybe Ronald Jones does find the end zone. So, yeah, Ronald Jones, 2,200, I think that's a fantastic play just from a value perspective. So, I'm definitely going to be on Ronald Jones there at that price. All right, and then we get kind of into, guys that, punts, throw a dart. There are some guys I want to mention. If I was to play anybody down here, and if I was doing like 1 to 3 lineups, I wouldn't touch any of these guys. But if I'm doing, say, 150 lineups, I will throw some of these guys in here. I'll start with, we can talk about BYRON Pringle here. 1,800, very cheap. He did have a good game Week 20. good game according to this. I mean, his price, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 5.2 DraftKings points. If Watkins plays and if Robinson plays, I don't know how much Pringle's going to really touch the field. Robinson should be playing, and I think Watkins plays as well. So don't know how much I'm going to get to Pringle, but it all depends on if Sammy Watkins and Robinson play, which I do think they will. Tyler Johnson, 1,200. If Brown is out, I think that he can definitely be somebody to look at this price tag. Just kind of taking a look at the last couple games, 2.6, 2.5, 2.6. So just somebody to look at. Maybe he catches a long ball or something like that, or maybe even scores. So, like I said, if I'm doing like 1 to 3 lineups, I'm going to have none of these guys, but just something to note if you are doing multiple lineups. Le'Veon Bell, I guess. I mean, he's questionable, expected to play. Maybe he does get a couple touches. Maybe he gets a couple receptions as well. 800, you really don't need much. I do think he'll gain some ownership just because he's Le'Veon Bell, and he's way too cheap, 800. So I don't hate Le'Veon Bell. Somebody that averaged 6.3 DraftKings points throughout the year. Maybe he does get a catch or two, and at that point, it's probably enough to hit value there for sure. And I guess the last person I'll talk about is Anthony Sherman. I only say this because I have a feeling that he will be involved in the offense quite a bit. They don't actually involve him in the offense, but you know what I mean. He plays a lot of snaps. I do remember on a showdown slate earlier in the year, I was against Baltimore. He was $200. I had a little bit of him, and he scored a touchdown at like 1% ownership. It was crazy at $200. Like if he scores a touchdown here, probably is going to be optimal at that price. And, of course, it allows you to go up and get your Patrick Mahomes, your Brady's, your TYREEK Hills, and your KELCE. So these are guys like dart throws, absolute dart throws. I would not play him in cash. I would not play him if I was doing like a 3 max or a single entry. But if you are playing like 150 max, these are some of the guys you kind of have to look at if you do want to take down those big tournaments. So that's about it. Thank you guys for sticking with me and watching. Very big game here. Remember to comment down what you think the score of the Super Bowl is going to be. Whoever gets the closest, $25 to first place. And, yeah, enjoy the game. It was a fantastic season. Looking forward to next year already. But we have a really good game ahead of us in the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, yep, good luck, guys, and let's make some money.